I spent the night in a hospital with a dark secret. My mother was terminally ill and spent her last few days in a hospital bed. I would work throughout the week as usual, but over the weekend I would stay with her, day and night. It became a routine, and the nurse in charge of my mother would leave me a pillow and blanket ready for me before I arrived. Claire was her name. She was the only real company I had left. I distanced myself from the outside world. The hospital and work were all I knew. When my mother lost her ability to speak, Claire was the only voice I heard since. Every night after my mother fell asleep, she and I would go check out the vending machines down the corridor. The lights in the hospital were faulty. They flickered on and off. Some lights just gave out, leaving many hallways in the dark. Must have been around midnight when Claire and I returned to the vending machines. Mother had fallen asleep earlier than usual. We chatted for some time, catching up on each other's week, cracked a few jokes, then a cry interrupted our conversation. It came from the hospital, kept the newborns. It came from where the hospital kept the newborns. Claire, being her job and all, went to go check on them. Me, who had nothing to do, followed her. She entered the room first, but before I could step inside, she screamed. I quickly darted into the room to find her frozen in place. As she started at the far corner, I glanced over to what she was looking at. A thin, bony creature laid before us. It was supporting itself on all fours, its arms twice the length of its legs. The most horrifying part of the creature had to be the two babies stuck in its abdomen. The babies weren't sewn or glued onto the body. They were growing out of it, complete with disfigured faces, arms, and legs. We quickly realized that the cry we heard didn't come from the newborns, but from those things in the creatures' bodies. We realized this because every newborn in the room was chewed up and crushed like half-eaten steak. One of them was currently in the creature's grasp, who was feeding the newborn's corpse to its children. It stopped and turned over to us. I grabbed Claire and dragged her out of the room, locking the door. As we ran down the hall, we saw the creature jumping across the room through the window. It burst through the door and chased us down the corridor. We zigzagged through the various dark halls until we lost sight of it. I ordered Claire to lead and call for help, but she refused, asking why in my right mind would I stay here with that thing. I told her I couldn't leave my mother alone with it. Claire agreed, telling me she would stay too no matter what I said. Unable to change her mind, we quietly snuck back into my mother's room. I nudged her arm and asked her to wake up, shaking her arm harder every time I said her name. She lay there, unresponsive. I looked to the machine that has been silent probably long before we entered the room. My mother was dead. After a good while, Claire convinced me to get up so we could leave at once. On the way out, we never ran into that creature again. The police showed up right when we made our exit. Apparently, the creature attacked more people on its way out. Officers didn't know what to make of the stories they were told of a giant monster that ate children. I gave my mother a funeral, of course. Only some relatives and family friends showed up. Left almost as soon as the priest did. Me and Claire stayed back and watched over my mother's grave. About a month or two later, we went back to the now abandoned hospital. Claire insisted we go check it out for clues against my better judgment. The reason for her curiosity was that the hospital told the police their surveillance cameras were faulty and thus were unable to record the monster. People spoke of it. She said the cameras worked just fine. She searched the place, wary of the creature lurking around. Didn't find much except for a classified document on a certain patient described as neither human nor animal. The papers following it contained ripped out pages bearing strange symbols. Not sure how to describe them other than satanic, demonic. You know, In my very little time working here, I never saw any prayer room, Claire said. I am being forced to marry myself. Story number 2. My parents are forcing me to get married to myself, but I don't want to get married to myself. I told my parents how I am against marrying myself, and my parents shouted back at me, telling me that they had promised that they would marry me off to myself. I am really freaking out right now, and I don't know what to do as I am against this. I don't want to even get married in general, but my parents aren't even listening. Another reason that I don't want to get married to myself is because I am a terrible person. I do not want to get married to a terrible person like myself. My parents said that I have a year to really turn myself into a good person and change my ways, so when I marry myself, I will be an easier person to be married with. I don't really want to change, and I hate this much, and I hate my parents for doing this. If I get married to myself right now, it will be the worst marriage imaginable. I have seriously wrong things about me, and I do not want to get married to do that. I tried running away, but every time I run away, when I look back, I see my body. Then I realized that because I'm marrying myself, running away will be running away from myself. So whenever I run away, it's like I turn into a ghost, and whenever I go, the body is there right next to me. So running away is out of the option. Nobody should force anybody to marry oneself, and especially if they are a bad person. I am a horrid person, and I have seriously fucked up things, so getting married to myself is a danger to myself. My parents said that I had a year to change, and because I saw no way out, I decided to change myself. I changed my whole life around, and I made amendments to all those that I had hurt. All of the people I had accidentally murdered due to my reckless actions and had visited me as a ghost. They forgave me, and it was a heartwarming moment. I changed so much that people didn't recognize me, and the person that I had turned into was a person I would marry. I had accepted that I was being forced to marry myself. Then when I thought the day was coming that I was going to get forced to marry myself, my parents told me that they aren't going to force me to marry myself. They just wanted me to change. That wasn't that great of a story. I'm sorry. Last story. Let's hope this one's better. I'm experiencing these just as you are, for the first time. My dad crawled out from under my bed, is the name of this one. I was around 6 when it happened. My parents had tucked me in for the bed. I live in the rural countryside, so nighttime is very quiet, no sounds of cars. It's usually very peaceful. I was laying on my back when suddenly I heard the sound of a long nail scratching the wood under my bed. The reason this incident sticks out to me is because I can still remember the feeling of my heart dropping up my stomach and my feeling of paralyzed with fear. I was about to call out for my parents when my dad crawled out from under my bed and stood up in the dark looking at me. He said, "You forgot to say your prayers," then walked out of my room. I was understandably shocked. I did not leave my bed afterwards and must have fallen asleep at some point. My dad would normally tell me to say my prayers before bed, so this seemed like something he would say, but I have no idea what would possess him to hide under my bed. My dad denies ever doing this. I brought it up numerous times over the years, but he has never admitted to doing it. I never really considered until recently that he definitely doesn't have nails long enough to make the deep scratching sound I heard. What do you guys think? Maybe I fell asleep and I had a vivid dream? I also considered it could be something paranormal. A strange one indeed.